So last week I was up 2.07%.
It's a lot more than I was up. I'll tell you that
Okay.
much
I was
right now.
curious. I thought you might.
What did my friend Ja Rule say? It's murder.
This podcast contains the arguably witty banter of two friends, Skippy and Doogles, that like to debate about investing. The content is intended to be entertaining and for informational purposes only, not investment advice. You should do your own research and consult a financial professional before using any of the information in this podcast, and especially before investing.
Is that a Dos Equis hat and a fake Pop Tart?
Yep.
Yeah, figures.
Well, I am the most interesting man in the world.
That is true. That's what the podcast listeners say. Let's hop into it, man.
All right. We need a house update, baby. Actually, we don't. We're doing listener mail, huh? I'm so excited, though.
We
excited.
do. We'll get there. I got to keep you, because I can see you on the edge of your seat right now. I got to keep you on that edge.
Oh, so are the listeners, baby. I got some hits this week. Like Doogles has to buy a house, homie.
And so before we get to the house update, listener mail. So we got two pieces of listener mail, right? And we acquire these through at Skippy Doogles on the Twitter or skippydoogles@gmail.com on the email. The first is a response to the redistribute the bubble campaign. You took a look at that. You want to drop some knowledge?
Yeah, I mean, so one, we love the feedback because although we haven't identified someone making less than $10 a day just yet, there's a little buzz, and so I'm pulling some more strings. We're gonna find some folks. We're gonna redistribute the bubble. Striked out beta, we took a look at. It looks pretty slick. So it's basically a money transfer service. Is that what you call it, Doogles? 5 seconds, send money to anyone you want.
Yep.
It looks like it's early in development from what I could tell, and maybe the listeners can hit us with some more knowledge. But right now, I think it's only USD to USD. So when we find our buddies in Nepal or wherever, we'll probably use a different service. But I love that it was sent our way because I'm going to keep a close eye on it. It's basically leveraging blockchain technology to send money, and there's something there, man. It's going to take off. I just don't know which service is going to ultimately rule the day.
Yeah, and I think it shows, to what you're saying, it shows like the concept is it's gonna start getting some action going on. And it looked real easy. It's like easy, yes. International, no. I think
I think like, international, not yet.
Not yet. Yeah. But that's pretty cool. Thank you for shooting that in. And the second thing we got was something about the Coinbase IPO that I was not privy to. I personally was not privy to. So apparently, our boy from back in the DZ was an investor in Coinbase when it was at $143 million valuation in 2013. Do you know who this is? Nah. It was written. Illmatic. Nas was an investor in Coinbase 8 years ago at $143 million valuation. Don't know how much he put into that thing, right? But it's worth a heck of a lot more now than it was then, even if he took on a little bit of a dilution there. Apparently, and I was taking a look, Nas has some other investments. Like he was an investor in Casper, Dropbox, Genius, Lyft, PillPack, Pluto, Ring. He is not playing around, my boy Nas. It got me thinking just more about the whole, like how much celebrities, whether it's rappers, sports stars, actors, etc. Ashton, my boy Ashton, getting involved in investments. But it's crazy. Yeah, Nas hopped in.
I mean, that's good because he is the official Queensbridge rapper of the Skippy Doogles show. So
that he is the official.
I can't believe I missed that actually, because I knew Nas's holdings. What was I thinking? That's a 13F that I follow closely, man.
Yeah, you're all about Klarman, Burry, and Nas. Yeah, thanks for the listener mail. Keep sending in Twitter at Skippy Doogles or skippydoogles@gmail.com. Whatever FLOTUS is your BOTUS is.
Yeah, and keep us coming. We're gonna find some folks to redistribute the wealth. So hit up a friend who has a friend who did some work with a international organization that might have some contact. We're gonna find them. So keep that feedback coming. I got a few hot leads, but nothing yet.
All right. So what's the question of the week?
Oh, everyone wants to know about Doogles' house. That's all there is. That's it.
Yes. I was hitting on those happy drinks, not the sad drinks, the happy drinks.
All right. So here's how I recall. This is not necessarily facts. I recall you like basically threw the kitchen sink and some Dogecoin and a Pixar movie and everything else. Like at any point after this offer is accepted, did you have a momentary spot of regret, thinking like I threw too much at this?
No, Leroy Jenkins, man. Y'all can plan all you want. I'm going straight in. And they said
You're
what
an
it
idiot,
was.
Leroy.
Yeah, exactly. No, but we're so excited. We're so excited. So we're gonna be moving in like end of the month, and it's gonna be hotness, man. I'm real glad you got me in that forced savings game.
Dude, I'm super happy for you guys. Just that you're happy. Like let's throw the financial piece aside for a second. Like that's super awesome. I'm so excited. Can we talk about at a really high level what you think this means for you, like in terms of your momentum investing, in terms of your retirement savings, in terms of just kind of your financial picture? Is this going to change things drastically for you, or is it more of the same?
It's more or less going to be, I think, the same, because like I was going back to part of the conversation that we had before. What it got me thinking about was when looking at the price of the house and how much we're willing to spend. I looked at it from a rent basis. Like, would we spend this amount for rent? And if the answer is yes, then basically the price of it I'm viewing as less of like the asset. You know, is the ultimate price of the house going to go up, and more of we're getting more than we would if we'd spend this in rent. And it's like it's well within like our general rent means, so we can still save, invest, all that stuff is still golden. It did, as we talked about before, I got the whole like cash outlay uncomfortability like aspect of it. It did it did hurt me a little bit. The good news was, though, here was the good news. So one might see this as bad news, but I'm gonna put it as good news here. The good news was that a lot of our portfolio got cranked this week. Like it got like not Kathy Wood cranked. Like her portfolio just got like nonsense. Like she's in bear market territory, down 25%. But it got hit, right? Like a few points. And so it was at a time where my brain might be saying, like, I could be putting this cash into the market, right? I'm putting the cash into something else. So it's just kind of not that really mattered in the end. I mean, we're just going to buy the house anyway. We're feeling good.
I mean, back like weeks ago, though, we did have some debate about how much cash you put down and if it might make sense to take on some mortgage insurance to have more cash in the market, all those things.
No choice. It reminded me of back when I would be playing poker at Lucky Chances in the Bay Area, and I'd make the right bet to get someone off their hand.
Yeah.
And the guy would shake his head at me, throw his chips in, and go, no choice. No choice. This market gave me no choice. Like in this market that we're in right now, you cannot go in and be like, I'm just gonna put 10%, 15% down. No. Like that's not gonna, homie, don't play that. It's just not gonna work out. So basically, I mean, the market dictated all of that. I did the calculations though. Like I built out a model, like we talked about, looked at what PMI is, not high. Like, so it mathematically would have worked out to not have put as much down. Like it would have made more sense. But we mentioned that to the realtor like near the beginning, and he was like, "That's like real cute what you're talking about right now, but it's not going to fly."
Yeah.
And then
it's
as
one
we saw
more potential disqualifying factor with the offer. Yeah, I got you.
Exactly.
All right. Well,
when you're in the market making Pixar movies, like you can't be trying to skimp out on the.
Yeah, I can make like a few more bucks over here over the next 10 years.
Yeah. So we're happy. I saw this paper that I thought was pretty interesting on housing. That I'll just give like a high level too. But did you have something else you wanted to creep to?
Yeah. Transition.
So there's this Harvard paper, which I'm only going to spend about a minute on it, and only I probably want to go like real deep on it. But there was this 150-page paper that some folks from Harvard put together. The actual title of the paper, if you want to go look it up, is House Price Contagion and U.S. City Migration Networks. It's 148 pages. Actually in full, if I want to be accurate. So if you want to go check that out, check it out. But there's a readable version that's called Do Workers Fleeing House Price Growth Take the Boom with Them as They Go? And I'll give you kind of the nuggets so you can know whether or not you want to read it. But basically what it was looking at, and part of this is kind of obvious, but I think the math go forward for economists could be interesting. But part of what it's basically about is saying there are certain cities in the US that are pretty closely tied together. and correlated. And so what happens is, like, for example, if you say the demographics of this city, the education profiles of this city, the temperatures of this city, like that kind of thing, are very similar to this other city, that if the first city becomes too expensive, naturally people will go to the other city. And while there are something, I can't remember the exact number, something like 720 like different quote unquote cities that they named in the US, there are that many, but one city might only really be closely tied to like 30 or 40 other cities. Like the migration networks are much tighter than that.
Can you give us any of those sister city examples? Like, is the Bay Area with New York City, or is
they only went into a few examples? And they did it through like maps mostly, so it was hard to really figure out. But they said in addition to demographics, geography was actually a pretty big driver too. And so generally the cities that were connected were within 50 miles or 150 miles. So it'd be more like Austin, San Francisco, Dallas? Or San Francisco, Portland, right? Like it was that kind of, because it's usually like a hub, quote unquote, flagship city. That's not what they called it. And then like kind of a tier 2-ish city from an expense perspective. So something like that. But yeah, but it was interesting to look at. And so I just go check it out because it basically, like, their economic model was basically saying you can predict like the future price of houses in some of the less expensive cities now, based on the housing price growth of more expensive cities. So if you're into it, go into it. House price contagion and U.S. city migration networks. What a sexy title. Harvard, what a sexy school. Go
Harvard is not a sexy school.
I know, and it's not a sexy title, but I was trying to. I was nerded out in this thing, and I was like, no one else is going to care, but I got to talk about it, especially during this housing situation. So.
Yeah, speaking of things no one else will care about, right? This week, I don't even know what happened to me, and I'm kind of proud of it, and I'm kind of ashamed of it. But I was going through investing podcasts and like looking at the top ones and being like, I don't listen to any of this.
Don't even tell me what you're about.
And so I just grabbed numero uno on the iTunes app and I just threw it in the CD deck and I was jamming. You know what I was jamming to?
Well, you put that in the 8-track?
Yeah, yeah. I listened to the Ramsey show this week for the very first
Dave?
time. Have you ever done? Yeah, like
oh god. Like once you go there, you never go back.
Dude, I listened to like 8 hours of content. I was like addicted to this thing.
You love that stuff?
No, so I don't love it, but it's kind of like a slow Russian car wreck. Like I loved parts of it and I hated parts of it. And I gotta tell you, I was just completely taken by this. It is amazing. Have you ever spent an hour with Mr. Dave Ramsey?
He and I have spent some time together.
Okay,
it's binge worthy. Cringeworthy and binge-worthy.
So first of all, let me just say lots of solid principles there, and I'm gonna make some jokes here, but like, hey, if you're following the 10-step plan or whatever it is, the baby steps, by all means, super cool stuff. I was blown away as a first listen, and I definitely have some friends and family that have done Financial PC University and everything else, and again, lots of positives there. I was blown away, I think, by almost like this kind of cult-like mentality. That's the wrong way to say it, but people calling up going, here's my situation, here's all my personal financial details, like this is how much I make, this is this is my drug problem, this is whatever, like,
yeah.
And them giving like a 2-minute answer, and these individuals being like, perfect, not questioning a word, I would go do exactly that. Like I was amazed and kind of captivated by that whole thing. Man, this guy called up. This guy, he's like, hey, I have 100K left on my house. I'm simplifying here. And my interest rate is 2.5%. And I have 100K in equities, like making around 10% a year. Like, what should I do? And it was no brainer, instantaneous. You pay off the house. Like that's baby step, whatever. And I'm going,
interesting.
Really? So I understand it's all about getting debt free, getting that monkey off your back, etc. But I just feel like this example became one of so little thought that I was almost disappointed in the advice a little bit, because I think it's way more nuanced than that. I think you can make a very strong argument that, hey, you have 100K sitting around, pay off that house, the free, there's all these non-financial things that come with being 100% out of debt. Like, do you follow that, Doogles? So I'm not saying this is just a numbers game, but the way they're talking about it, man, if I had 100K in a CD paying 4% a year, I know those aren't current rates, and I had a mortgage at 2% a year, all I have to do is sit on that for 30 years and I make more money, right? Like, I guess I was just a little taken by that. I'm curious if you have any thoughts where you just purchased a house and you're going through all these things of like, how much debt do I take on? Now, in your case, maybe the market dictated, but I guess I was just surprised at how little nuance and kind of high level or detailed thought there seemed to be in this 10-step program. Like, you do this regardless of if it makes financial sense or not.
But that's why I was clowning on Dave Ramsey, not because of the advice or any of that stuff. It's just like the level of simplicity and lack of nuance that it ends up having. I think because he has to generalize for the most part for an audience, it's like the safest bet. And I think if you're looking at this from what's the safest bet, like generally, then you want to do that, because I assume what the not the math, but the like psychology of it ends up being is you never know what your future situation is going to be. And if you end up like losing your job, blah, 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 it's better for you just not to have debt. Like for you not to have forced payments, right? It's probably like what the psychology is, but the math doesn't work out. If you feel secure in your future income streams, then I would probably have some semblance of like I don't know, balance. I think there, like maybe sell some, pay off some of the house or something like that. But the math doesn't quite work out.
Well,
I guess he's also probably saying, I mean, this thing's about to fall apart. And so maybe you should take the money while you can.
No, I think you nailed it. And this is actually what I wanted to talk to. I'm wondering if in investing, if you want to cast a wide net, if you have to like really dumb it down and say, we're not going to actually do math here. We're not going to actually talk about your situation, because what I'm pretty sure he would tell you, if you haven't bought a house yet and you have your emergency fund set up and all your, you're on baby step 5 or whatever, he'd tell you, you put tons of cash in mutual funds and you invest that nonsense until you're ready to buy a house. Well, that's effectively like, so if I own a house, I can't own equities to make I make around 15% a year, right? But if I don't own a house, I'm allowed to do that. And then I'm allowed to take the proceeds from my capital gains to buy a house. Like, it just doesn't really add up. But I can get off my soapbox here.
No, yeah, I agree with that. I think it kind of comes back to a conversation that we've had a few times. I think when we talk just around both the investor to like investment philosophy match, as well as like generally the psychology and the safety that has to come with investing. And you can't get in like here. Let me say this. Like, if you look at your investment philosophy and my investment philosophy, right? I would say both of them are sound.
Yeah.
But neither one of us is going to do the other as our core, right?
No.
And I would tell, just like if someone comes to me, and even if they laid out some general details, the average person that comes to me and says, what am I supposed to do? I'm going to say buy VTI, right? As we've talked about, like it's the broad US index, just buy it and hold it. Like, that's what I would tell them. What I actually think one should do is what I do. I think you should invest. Like, that's the reason why I do it. Like, you should invest that. Like, that is mathematically, I think what you should do is invest in my portfolio. The level of nuance that's involved in that is like, you should invest in it so long as you're able to like withstand the week that just happened where it's murder and like not sell anything. So long as you can have like strong drawdowns and wait for things to like come back up. So long as you ... so long as you ... right? And especially Dave Ramsey can't say that, especially when he's being recorded. Now, if he and I were sitting sipping on some Japanese whiskey, you know what I'm saying, he would probably say something a little bit different.
You're saying you simplify, because what you can't do in a 5-minute conversation with someone on the radio is figure out if they can withstand a 40% downturn in their portfolio, what their long-term strategy is, everything else.
The psychology.
Yeah. I mean, again, like, I think there's a lot more positive. There's a lot of positive coming out of that basic guidance. And basically that's, although I've never thought of it in that manner, there's a lot of similarities with my personal finance strategy in terms of like, I don't have any debt. I don't pay out. I don't have car loans, and I don't have credit card debt, and those sort of things. Anyway, we can get off that. I just was like totally captivated by it and thought it was really interesting. And it's not Skippy Doogles, baby. It's just not.
No. Oh, no, don't come on here. Don't come on our show with that noise. What you got in the fishbowl over there?
Well, you talked about investment strategy. I mean, let's just go for that. You don't know it yet, but if you own any momentum funds, I think yours is all home baked. But the non-Doogles home baked momentum funds just did a massive shift of strategy, pulling out of healthcare and technology, things like Tesla, and diving into basically commodities and financials, energy and financials, oil stocks like I own, all the cheap stuff that I own. So your strategy finally saw the light, Douglas. They finally got scared and they came over to the value side. And now get ready, you're gonna make some money. So last week I was up 2.07%.
It's a lot more than I was up. I'll tell you that
Okay.
much right
I was curious. I thought you might.
Oh, it was what did my friend Ja Rule say? It's murder. It was like, ugh. It was so bad that it was magical. We'll see. There was a point where I think I've got my wife looking at our stock portfolio too much, so I need to like delete apps off her phone. Because there was literally a point, it was 2 days ago, where I heard a scream that was something like the comms. I was like, what? And she goes, Dexcom, Broadcom, all the comms, they're falling. It's like, hey, oh man.
Hold on. If the wife's involved, I mean, do you guys have your own TikTok investors? Like
that thing, if folks have not taken a scroll, every 3.5 weeks, take a scroll through the TikTok investors. It is brilliance.
Dude, well, going back, this is 5 or 6 episodes, but we played a clip from this guy who only buys stocks that go up on margin, and he was like bragging about how he's turning $500 into like 20K. Well, apparently, according to the gossip, they've like disappeared. They like can't be found. Is that true, Douglas?
I mean, it's what it seems like. So something's fishy on that side. Something did not quite go as planned.
I mean, maybe they're just part of the BUZZ ETF, or maybe they're starting their own hedge fund or something.
Oh, did you see that Portnoy is now celebrating endorsing this BUZZ ETF that launched on Thursday? Did you see that?
Yeah. Did you see the like 3-minute video?
Can one see that video, or can one only live and feel that video? That's the question. All right, let's pop it in right now.
Okay, if you know anything about me, you know if I'm standing in front of this water cooler, I have a big announcement to make, and I do have a big announcement to make. This Thursday, on the New York Stock Exchange, there is a new ETF launching, a new ETF that I'm part of, that I'm putting my face behind, my reputation behind. Everything over the last 20 years, when I stand here and say, I believe in it, I believe in what we're doing, it's another one of those moments. The name of the ETF is BUZZ. B-U-Z-Z, like zzz, stung, all right? Like a bee. I've been stung 3 times, I'm still here. I'm gonna sting a lot more. Here's what it is. I got approached by these guys who built an algorithm 5 years ago. The algorithm was basically designed to scrape the internet, social media, and find positive sentiment on stocks. It kind of lingered, it kind of did its thing. And then what happened? DDDG happened, I happened, COVID happened. All of a sudden, the amount of chatter on the internet about stocks exploded.
I mean, marketing genius. Like, he basically, my favorite thing I think about this video is that he understands both the marketing and the regulation so well that he doesn't even say the word ETF. Like he has a voiceover that says it, that's not his own voice, just so he can say, I did not say ETF.
But I mean, the tweet did say ETF. So like,
I don't know. But
so do you know the short history with the BUZZ ETF?
Wait, are you coming with historicals?
I mean, a little bit.
I'm going to count this as a Doogles win. I got you on the history, bro.
So this, the main guy behind this algorithm actually had a BUZZ ETF, I think in 2013. Beat the streets, did everything else. I'll try to find his name because it seems like a good dude. And to be honest, when I was in business school in 2011, I was pitching this idea. I just am a loser who didn't get my act together, right? Like,
were you really?
Yeah. So I knew in the early days of Twitter that there was something going on. Not necessarily, this is not a value strategy by anything, but I knew there should be some way to capture what people are effectively saying in a way that can be digitized rather than what people are saying in face-to-face conversations that you never had an eye to, and bring some investment methodology to that, right?
Yeah, makes
so
sense.
This dude, I actually think the algorithm started in like 2012, 2013. He had an ETF that was BUZ, just one Z, and ran its course. Never really took off as desired. But a lot of that, I mean, a lot of this is why I don't necessarily want to manage money for other people, because you have to deal with all the nonsense that comes with inflows and outflows and everything else. Like, I think he always felt his strategy was still sound. He just didn't have the right marketing to make his previous ETF kind of take off and stick. So that's why I'm sure he played an active role in recruiting the Barstool guy, and their marketing is much better. Now it has two Z's on the end.
And that's the big innovation, people.
That is the big well, no, the 3-minute video is the big innovation. So this speaks a little bit to the bubble we've been talking about for a long time and everything else. I mean, I don't know why a guy that basically created a fan generated website. How's the best way to describe Barstool for those who don't know? I mean,
it's basically like a media little like content engine, right? That supports irreverent behavior.
Yeah, right. Okay, there we go. So I don't know how that guy became some investment sage who
I mean, because anyone that has a social media account and some wit is an investment stage.
Oh, you know, great point. Yeah, well, and he is marketing to the right audience. So if your people love sports gambling, then I think you can sell so-called investing, I'd call it speculating, as like it's safer than sports gambling in my eyes, right? So that's the perfect audience to sell it to.
I mean, and especially when you look at like you know, the cryptos and everything. I mean, it's the equivalent of you're just betting on something doing something. Your time horizon might be a little bit different.
Yeah.
So this thing has like, it's 75 stocks, I think, that are the most tweeted, Reddited, mentioned on stock twits, etc. I thought it was interesting because when I looked at the holdings, I thought they were going to be a bit different than they are. One, I didn't realize that it has a minimum $5 billion market cap on it, which knocks out like the AMCs and the game stonks and all those of the world. So like, it's number one holding. Do you know what the number one holding of this thing is?
No.
Ford Motor Company.
Well, so does it buy 75 equal weighted?
No, it's market cap weighted. If it's not market cap weighted, it could be like mention weighted or like sentiment weighted or something like that. I don't know.
Ooh, interesting.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And then it trades out on a monthly basis, I think, so people are talking about Ford right now. I mean, is this 1908? Like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly.
I mean, I'm not talking about Ford. Who's talking about Ford? Yeah, interesting. It's not really my cup of tea, but maybe I'll take a look.
I kind of think about this as to use a scientific phrase, a nothing burger, a bit, because it sounds all, you know, Portnoy, like sexy like and whatnot, and you expect to see like these meme stocks, but then like I went on it and I was like, these seem like randomly chosen stocks that someone mentioned on Twitter. Like it doesn't actually, I don't really understand quite what the point is, but we'll see. Apparently it outperformed the S&P 500 by 40% last year.
I mean,
so I don't know what that means.
Like,
so I don't know what that means.
Yeah. What else is in the fishbowl for you?
Yeah. One piece of data that I thought was interesting, going back to our conversation around inequality, that I'll throw out. I don't know if you've seen this, but there were actually two things that I saw. One was I was just perusing, as one does, through JP Morgan's latest quarterly like guide to investing.
Yeah.
And they had this slide on there that was looking at the historic change in wage growth and unemployment growth since 1970. So over the last 50 years, basically. And it was interesting that I saw this spike in wage growth. And also, you know, obviously we had a spike in unemployment. And I was just like, oh, that's kind of interesting, because typically, like, I would expect like the two to go in the opposite direction. And so then I did a little bit more digging and found this other stat that is comparing February 2020, like absolute aggregate wages in the US to absolute aggregate wages at the end of December, which is the last data point that we have through the BLS.
Yeah.
So in February of 2020, Americans earned $9.66 trillion in wages and salaries. Okay. At the end of 2021, Americans got to 9.67 trillion, so they're basically the same. It's like slightly above. The difference is that you have 9 million fewer people working.
Yes.
And like that to me is telling, because basically you're saying we can take 9 million people out of the economy, right? And the people that are left have wage increases such that you can but you can surpass like the wages that you had with those 9 million people in, which one to me tells me who those 9 million are that were pulled out. Yep. Like it wasn't like, let's take all the Fortune 500 CEOs and have them lose their jobs, right? It's the exact opposite. Mm-hmm. And then two tells me how aggressive this is not a new realization, but how aggressive last year was in shifting more wage to the people that were left. Does that make sense?
I've seen a lot of facts that bear that out. Basically, the people that were probably already at a disadvantage have been hit extra hard in the COVID world. And the people with higher paying corporate jobs typically haven't been impacted. And, I've seen that at my employer. I think if people lost jobs, it was more frequently the people at lower levels than the people at higher levels. Bonuses seemed solid. I mean, it was almost like it didn't affect the top earners in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's really, I don't know. It pulled on a little bit of the heartstrings, a little bit as I was looking at that. If we go back to the conversation we had around people in the country, independent of who those people are, right, feeling left out, and how that's led to a number of things over the past few years. And like, this is another group of people that we're not only like leaving out, but saying through economics, our country's actually fine if we leave you out, and we'll reward the people left in. No one's saying that explicitly. I'm just saying that like that's what the numbers are bearing out, and we cannot, in order for our democracy to stabilize, like we can't be having that. So we got to figure something out.
This is a tough one to crack, because it's just not fair what's happening, but there's no easy fix either, right? A lot of this is not something that changes 6 months down the road, regardless of upskilling or whatever else. Like the people whose finances are good right now, their finances might be the best they've ever been, because effectively they're taking PPP loans or stimulus checks that are nice to have, but they don't really need. And then the people on the flip side of that, it's the exact opposite. Their finances might be the worst they've ever been, right? You own a small business like a restaurant and you've been devastated, or you happen to be unemployed because of COVID related stuff. I mean, it's not easy to find the next gig, right?
Can I reach in? So somewhat related, can I reach into the fishbowl? And there are like these 3 nuggets that are sitting in the fishbowl that could be separate topics, but I'm going to try and Auntie Anne's pretzelize these things together around that topic. Can you stay with me while we do this? Is this a possibility?
I mean, I got a pretty good night's sleep, so I think I'll be able to stay awake for like the next 5 minutes as you make a fool of yourself. Yeah.
I mean, it's inevitable, but let's bring the inevitability to life, baby.
All right.
Okay. So here's the thing. So we have these folks that are the 9 million people, right, that are no longer part of that wage calculation.
Yes.
We've had the conversations about how more people, going back to your boy Chamath, how more people, we need to get more people to participate in the capital markets, right? Let's make R is greater than G applicable for all, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And we just had the conversation about if you're telling your average investor what to invest in, it's going to be some sort of a, I say VTI, you have, what you have there, maybe global value or something else, but it's going to be like a broad market index of some sort.
Oh yeah, and
that you buy
to
and
be
hold.
clear, I never give investment advice, but hey, homies, if you want an unsophisticated investment strategy that is gonna delight, check out Wealthfront. The app is brilliant.
And we talked a few weeks ago about Joel Greenblatt and income inequality and some ideas he had for
my boy.
that. Okay, yeah, holla at your boy. Exactly. So now here we go. I'm about to tie some stuff together. So one thing is, markets got hit.
Yeah. Well,
That's
for
scary.
you, I'm up, baby. I print money over here.
Markets. I'm not talking about individual portfolios. Why you gotta twist the knife? Why you gotta twist the knife? So the markets broadly got hit, right? NASDAQ worse than others, but markets got hit. Markets get hit all the time. So just to keep people not scared, I'm going to drop this out. Stay participating in the market. Since 1950, there have been 36 double-digit drawdowns. I'm just going to state that one fact. So people stay in the market. Okay. Also, individual investors are terrible at investing.
Yes.
I saw some stats. We've previously talked about that some version of that chart that comes out every year, how institutional investors, professional investors, also not very good at investing. It seems like no one's actually very good at investing because individual investors, I saw this report that was showing the average like equity fund investor. So this is just looking at mutual fund inflows and outflows. But if you look at it through 2019, it looks like on average about 4 to 5% is how much the average individual investor is lagging like the S&P 500. And that's basically
let me jump in. Is this the Dalbar study?
It is.
Okay. So caveat, there's a lot of hot noise with people, really smart people like Jason Zweig at the Wall Street Journal questioning that, but the general premise, I mean, so we won't get into the actual details, but the general premise is true. People aren't great at picking individual stocks, the large majority of people.
If nothing else, I love hot noise. So let's just go with that. Methodology is what it is, and this is just it's not even looking at individual stocks, it's looking at funds. The basis that they have is basically that folks get in at the wrong times and get out at the wrong times is why.
It's the buy high sell low stuff.
Exactly. But anyway, so let's just take it as directional fact that folks cannot invest for themselves. Here's where my craziness comes into play, and this is off the top of the kilters, so bear with it. I saw in the last couple weeks there was something submitted to Congress on the House side that said they want to block individual members of Congress from buying individual investments, right? You see this?
No.
You didn't see this?
I'm laughing though. No.
Okay. So basically there was a bill put out because people on both sides of the aisle, going from like Kelly Loeffler to Nancy Pelosi to whoever, number 369, right, on the House of Representatives, they've, over the last forever, have basically, there are things that come out that say like, you're trading Tesla and you're making millions of dollars and you're trading, right? So there was this bill that was put out that said, if you are in Congress, you are no longer allowed to buy individual investments, right? When I first saw this, I was like, I could see where there's a conflict of interest, like maybe that makes sense. And then I kind of put it aside. What I'm thinking now, though, could be interesting. Bear with me. I know you're trying to say something, double Dutch. I see you, but bear with me for one moment. One thought I just had that could potentially tie together, let's get more people participating in the overall market. Individuals can't pick their own stuff. So likely you should be investing in broad markets, is what if you tax the Congress people differently? Allow them to invest in individual stocks, but you tax it differently such that the excess tax that would come from their sales would then be used to fund broad market indices for people that are not invested in the overall stock market. Are you following me, or am I going, if I'm SpongeBob SquarePants or Doogles Crazy Pants, where do you think I am on that spectrum?
All right. Well, I think I missed one premise. I mean, not allowing people to buy individual stocks is a stupid idea, but let's put that aside for a second.
Well, hold on. We shouldn't. Let's come back to it, though. Let's come back to it.
Okay, let's come back to it. You're talking 600 people total,
roughly.
So there's some people of money there, and there's some people that are pretty average Joe folks, right? Tax rates on about 600 folks, unless they're the wealthiest 600 folks in the U.S., aren't really moving the needle to shift some funds downstream, if that's what you're going for. That's my main challenge to your premise here.
What? So you're bringing math into this?
Unfortunately.
I'm trying to bring aspiration.
No, could you imagine people on both ends of the spectrum, like, just being so upset? Like, oh, I can't believe I'm giving $10 to this person who could really use it over here. Like, the injustice of taxing me that way. Can't you? There's no way this would ever work. But
yeah, I tell you what, man, I'm gonna be honest. I saw glory. I dusted off my soapbox. I jumped on it and I was vulnerable for a moment.
Oh, and I didn't give you a soft landing there, did I? That's
soft landing. No, that's right though. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
I mean, if you go back to the Greenblatt stuff from his common sense book, just it's along the same lines, right? Like, just let people who have money to burn invest above current tax caps and take a tax percentage on that that's a little higher than average, but would still be a win-win for all parties involved. Throw some of that cash back downstream. I mean, I just love the win-win-win scenarios in business, in life, and everything else.
Yeah, you called it nonsense, and it was nonsense. But I tried to go there. I hear you. Yeah. I hear you. Can we skirt back to the individual investment ban and your calling out of that?
Yeah, please. I mean, so I just get so frustrated. I was listening to a podcast with Jim O'Shaughnessy and Jamie Catherwood, I think is how it's pronounced, the finance history guy. And O'Shaughnessy was so fired up. This is actually from a couple years back when
this is Papa O'Shaughnessy, right?
Papa, yeah. When people were all hot against buybacks, and so they did all this stuff about buybacks have been going on since 1604 in the Netherlands and everything else. You know, like, basically people get so lost in the fact that owning a share of a company is owning a business. No one would tell you that there should be restrictions on starting a small business out of your garage. Like, no one on any side of the political aisle would tell you that, right? What
the
they
IRS
also
might, or zone regulators.
Oh, there you go with your logic. No one would tell you when you start that small business and it starts to take off and you have $5,000 from Uncle Joe that you can't be smart about how you pay Uncle Joe back or when Uncle Joe, you know, like, it's all the same thing. It's just on a much larger scale. So I don't understand why there's this hatred or fear or whatever with allowing people to own businesses they choose and allowing those businesses to redistribute capital in a way that makes sense.
It's conflict of interest. If you're voting on laws that can influence your investments, they're saying you should not be allowed to like, if I'm going to say I'm going to put, my $10 million into Tesla, and then next week I'm going to vote yes on a bill that gives tax subsidies to companies that create electric batteries, right?
Yeah.
Like that's where it's saying you should not be allowed to buy Tesla.
So sorry, my rant was more general. Now let's dive into Congress specifically. Yes, I can see that point, but that doesn't go away when you tell someone they can only buy a mutual fund, because you know what they're going to buy? The mutual fund that it invests in batteries for cars.
Yeah,
and then they're going to pass the same laws. You know,
the dilution there though is like, it's I know it's a little bit
not,
different.
It's not
different,
the same.
But I hear you.
But yeah, I guess I like that at least people are thinking about that, because I don't think people have realized how much insider trading is happening with political knowledge in the past. But that happens at the state level, I would argue.
Yeah, and they're going to figure it out. If you're about to put $10 million in Tesla, you're going to figure out how to get $10 million in Tesla. I mean, it's going to happen one way or the other.
Yeah,
blind trust or something. But
so, I mean, would you be in favor of that?
When I first looked at it, I can think about it a little bit more. When I first looked at it, I was net in favor. I think the conflict of interest feels pretty real. And even in the world of, I think generally an argument that says, well, people are going to do it anyway, isn't a good reason to not do something. Like, I just made that argument, right? And I think generally speaking, mostly because I feel like the behavior that I've seen happen in Congress and the people that have been coming into Congress recently just feels so much more self-serving than like previously. And so I think I kind of am. I don't know if it's like a perma law, right? But it feels like a correction that might be necessary now.
Yeah, I'd love a breakdown on like how many members of Congress make a significant portion of their income from investments, because I think it's a pretty small group. I mean, I would push back. I'm sure there's an individual or two that started a company that turned into the next hot thing that became a leader in their community because of their relationship to that company that they own, and rode that up to Congress. And to tell them that they built this with their blood, sweat, and tears, and then you have to sell just to serve your country.
So to be fair, that's not what the bill says. Who knows what it's going to look like in the end?
Yeah.
You can't buy, you can't buy and sell while you're in. You can hold.
Ooh, okay.
Right?
I mean, I think I'm more in favor of that.
I think it says something like, I'm going to get the days wrong, but it's something like in your first 60, 90, or 120 days or something like that, right? You can feel free to sell anything you have then, but after that point, you can't sell. So then you just have to hold.
Do you know how like CEOs and stuff have to be careful about when they buy and sell, and typically they say, I'm going to sell this like 3 months in advance. Like, I mean, are those rules already in place for members of Congress? Because if so, I don't think if you have to say something's happening in 3 months, I think that cuts out a lot of the noise.
I don't know. That's interesting. I have no idea. I mean, we don't have to talk, I guess, too much about the political side of it. I thought it was interesting, tying it into the investment side, but then actually I didn't do anything. You put my foot in my mouth, and I'm not going to call it disrespect, but listeners can make their own choices.